World building. How is it they use the hub world to build upon the stories of the actual world that the player takes place in, that they explore, and how they use it to help guide the narrative? As we all know, Naughty Dog are also a master of narrative design, really creating compelling stories that we as players want to understand and know more about. And you can definitely do that a lot with linear level design. They've done it so much. But it's, again, fascinating to see how they've shown that within the hub world, because there's going to be parts of the stories which you might miss. You might not go and do all these other activities in the hub world. You as a player might just be solely focused on that of the mainline story and go on and take your adventures further with that. So we'll first talk about kind of some tips and tricks that I've learned through my time, and I'm just looking at the similar theories that have been applied across in Last of Us 2 for us. So when it comes to that of world, especially environmental storytelling within your world building, you want to kind of show the kind of overall narratives. And one of the big overall narratives is obviously the virus and how humanity has adapted and also been knocked back. You look at today's society, obviously humans are on top in terms of food chain as well as technology. That's it. But in Last of Us, because of the fact that the virus was so deadly, you've seen that the population has obviously decreased. There isn't as many humans present in the world, but we've seen that nature has taken control. Nature has taken back what we took from it when we built our cities. As I said, this takes place in Seattle. Now, to help tell that story, what they do, and it's present in Last of Us, what there is that they're trying to do, and one of their key kind of pillars of their story is the fact that nature is taking control. So they show this with the fact that the areas are overgrown, overrun by grass, trees, all these elements. What once was a clear road has now been just covered in green, as well as, people may not know this, and I've forgotten the correct term, but you have to clean out and be careful of the pipes that go underneath roads. Otherwise, they can explode and burst and cause all kind of deformation towards the roads, and you can see that as well present. So that's kind of the first story that's being told. Now, here's a tip, and again, it's a tip, it is not a hard rule, but when you're telling through environmental storytelling, you're kind of at maximum only supposed to tell 3 stories. Generally, it's best to be kept to 2, but it should only mostly hit 3. And the reason I say this is because if you don't have characters talking and narrating or an overall kind of storyline on top of it, it can get confusing as to why certain props are here, what happened in the area the players visited. And you can see that kind of structure kept within that of Last of Us 2 as well in Seattle downtown. So the kind of 3 stories that you see very present inside of the structure of the game comes from the fact that, well, 2 things here. Like we said, the nature earlier, but also Seattle was once a kind of quarantined checkpoint city. We hear Ellie discuss that when I believe it is Boston it took place in the first game. And you see that through with all these solid gates, checkpoints, what would have been armed turrets, watchtowers, barbed wire, making this place feel almost like a prison because of how the government shut it down. And that's kind of the second story, is showing and telling people, okay, not only was it overrun, but before it became overrun with nature, humans used this city to kind of try figure out how they could solve the virus problem, how one another actually interacted with different people, kind of hierarchy on how that worked. You'll hear Ellie comment about it. So those are kind of the 2 prevalent stories in terms of the environmental storytelling. However, as I mentioned, you can go up to 3, but just do be careful because sometimes it's hard for the player to understand. And the third one, and this really helps because of the other narrative tools they have. You see it with graffiti, both the characters talk about this part, so it makes more sense. But I believe it's called Fedra They're not there for Fedra though. Fedra, as I said, was what the governing body to keep kind of control of the lockdown and civilians while things were trying to be figured out. But they're after another group, the Washington, I think it was Washington Wolves essentially, or something along that kind of area. Sorry guys, I've clearly not got enough information with showing you all this. I've failed you. But they're after another group. And you can see the kind of struggle between both Fedra and the group that Ellie and Dina are after. And you can show this through kind of the, as I mentioned, the graffiti. Some of them have got like F Fedra, these kind of elements to it. But what helps to make this clear is the fact that you've got these characters narrating and talking over that, right? You have Ellie kind of talking about what they see. Okay, they mentioned there might have been a scuffle between them. You'll find different kind of notes as well around you. If you think about kind of audio log and pickups, you find that to help relay the story too. So these kind of helpful elements. But this is how it tells the story, right? This is how the world is built, by environmental storytelling, the conversation between the characters, and as well as finding things such as audio logs, diaries, journals, these elements, again, just to help. There isn't actually audio logs in Last of Us 2, I don't think, but we know, understand what I'm trying to say, the pickups that you find in order to learn more. So all these elements come in to help tell the world's narrative. And similar, as we talked about in terms of exploration, you're going to be rewarded with more kind of backstory if you explore too. And for those who don't, then you have the comments of the main characters coming through as well. So yes, very good stuff there. And I hope, that helps as well for you if you are trying to tell more stories through your levels. Think about it as well.